now we are talking about book, paper, document, what it's supposed to be. But let's now talk about what we see out there.
Every month you get your salary and you can see that your pension savings account, there is you didn't get any alert. You know that the government has not remitted or paid your pension for the first month, for the second month, for the third month. You will raise alarm.
Should it be the pension companies paying this, or should it be government paying it?
Government pays directly.
To who?
Of course, to the PFAs.
This is Soup Business Landscape. So today we will start with this particular issue, and it has to do with states owing retirees, contractors over ₦1 trillion. Now, this is despite the huge money that has come into their coffers, 2024-2025. Now, states owe a combined 1.06 trillion in arrears to contractors and retirees, according to budgeted 2025 State of State report. Of the total backlog, 434.87 billion is owed to contractors, while pension and gratuity arrears amounts to 626.81 billion. The data highlights the deepening fiscal strain facing state governments, even as federal allocation and inland revenue surged significantly during the year. 26 states had outstanding contractor debt, while 27 owed retirees. Analysts warned that the accumulation of such obligation threatened economic stability, local business liquidity, and welfare delivery at the subnational level. Now, this is like the third time we are talking about states owing in less than 2 weeks. Can we ever get tired of talking about this? 434.87 billion owed contractors, 626.81 billion to pension and gratuity. Now, let's break it down. This pension and gratuity, these are monies that were deducted from source before salaries were paid to these individuals in their years of service. Why are we not having problems with remitting these same monies back to the people that these monies were taken from in the first place?
Most state governments are supposed to use like a third-party pension contributing companies like private sectors do. If it is done that way, it is seamless. Once you have a third-party pension company handling that, your hands are washed off. Your people retire and they deal with their pension companies of their choice. But when states deduct pension and then they put it in their own coffers, then there's a problem because there is no proper accountability, as we can see. That is why so many states are owing. And we are talking about this financial misappropriation of states so many times because we as a people, we put too much pressure on the federal government and we leave the state government and the local government. So we need to put more searchlight and torchlight on, these subnationals because they affect us more than the federal government. They employ more people and they deal with more of our everyday activities. So we need to put more pressure and, to come back to this pension thing, state government should let third-party companies that are built for this solution to handle pension contribution and, paying off.
And paying and remitting it at the end of the day. Yes. You retire and you are not sure if you will get your pension. Is that not a direct gateway of let me accumulate and steal from government?
Okay, first of all, I'll call that phenomenon is a very bad one because it's setting bad precedents. It defeats investor confidence. It also hinder and prevents, people with bright minds from wanting to come into the government, work. People go in there for all sorts of reasons. But if somehow they begin to look at the fact that their future is not secured, they want to prefer working in private organization than going. And I'm talking about the kind of brains that should bring developmental activities and the kind of initiatives that move mountains in the private sector to bear on the public sector. Also, it also reduces and depletes human capital development. And that's not a good one at all. But one other thing that we should ask, if it's all the states that will the monies that were deducted from source to be given to pension, the PFAs, took it directly and refused to remit them to the pension authorities. Because if it refused to remit them to the pension authorities are going to cry out. Normally, when you have your pension accounts and monies are trickling, you're supposed to be seeing your balance every month end, because you yourself, you are making part of the contribution. The government that you're working for is also making a part of the contribution, and it's being remitted to the PFA, under which a specific employee, is signed.
That is for states that have pension comes.
It is a civil service. It's a civil service rule. It is there.
It is there, but is it being followed?
So that's where I'm going. So if that is the case, every month you get your salary, and you can see that your pension savings account, there is you didn't get any alert. You know that the government has not remitted or paid your pension for the first month, for the second month, for the third month. You will raise alarm. If you don't raise alarm, the pension fund administrators under which you are registered are also going to raise alarm, or the general body, the Nigerian Pension Commission, they're equally going to raise alarm, because they have regulatory oversight over the PFAs. And their regulatory oversight does not stop in the PFAs. To some extent, they collaborate and speak with we're talking about the government now, for them to make sure, if the fault is from their part, to make that payment to the account.
Okay, but
so
now,
it's a bit dicey.
You are talking about for states that have PFAs that are working.
We are talking about civil servants here, and I just established the fact that this is a rule. It's part of the civil service procedure.
Okay.
You have.
As we speak right now,
you
it is
must
not
have. No, it is not that it's not working. Who is defaulting?
Okay.
So the chains for us to actually look at who is actually defaulting is what I'm laying out here, and who is going to be playing that specific role. So I don't want to completely say the government is refusing to pay back to pay the receipt into the pension account. Now, this is what I want to say.
Should it be the pension companies paying this, or should it be government paying it?
Government pay directly.
To who?
Of course, to the PFAs, because it is there in your data, in your detail.
Now you're talking about book, paper, document, what it's supposed to be. But let's now talk about what we see out there. We see when retirees get paid directly from government accounts.
Right.
As we speak this month.
Most
there are some states where the PFAs pay directly into. So we have some on this side, some on that side, and that actually displays the fact of who is actually faulting. On that particular part, the state is faulting.
Okay. Now let's now come to, we are still going back to this pension. Now let's ask ourselves this particular question. Why should you initiate a contract when there is no financial backup to fund that contract? Or when you know very well that even in your budgeting and in your internally generated revenue, you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel to be able to pay for those contracts, but yet you go ahead and initiate those contracts. Why?
And that's just pure financial recklessness. And I'm going through I can see that 3 states are not owing. So I would like us to talk about the 3 states that are not owing. Nasarawa is not owing, Kano State is not owing, and one other state. This is financial recklessness for contracts to be given out. And, I like to give credit to what Wiki always says, that when there's so much pressure on him to deliver on infrastructure and, campaign promises in Abuja, but he is saying he's not going to award any contract if there's no financial framework for it to be completed or for it to be paid for. So if any governor is giving out contracts without no, financial backing for it, it's just pure financial breakthrough. And we need to look at some of the figures of this owing to see what the states can afford and what the states cannot afford. The most indebted state is not a very strong state. So I don't know how they accrued that so much debt to contractors. So it's just pure carelessness on the part of the governor.
Okay, now Priye, let me come to you with this. Mukhtar says pure carelessness. are you going to stand and say this is not corruption? Is it lawful to award contracts when you can't pay for them?
Do you know what I'm
And
laughing?
at the end of the day, you say your tenure is done and you leave for the next person to inherit the problem you've caused down.
Okay.
Is this not corruption?
Okay. First of all, I'm laughing because I am not a judge.
I'm
to
just
actually
asking
say
you.
this is actually corruption.
Speak to us like a layman in
Or
the
this
street.
is
Now your
not
state is
corruption.
indebted right now. Your state is owing 626 billion
That's the
to pensions.
I think that's the
and
collection.
owing
400 billion or
I'm
so.
just giving an example. Like,
The
let's just say
contract.
it's your state.
Oh, okay.
Owing 434.8 billion to contractors. And that contractor happened to be maybe your in-law. And he hasn't sent his children to school in the last 6 months.
Okay. So,
And he has gone ahead to execute the contract.
okay, so let's look at this from different strands. First of all, no state, including the nation itself, want to, they give forecasts. The 2025 budget is a forecast of, taking into consideration your revenue, your expenditure, and all your liabilities.
Okay.
And based on the prevailing strength for which you refine or you are going to get your product, how you're going to source your revenues to take care of the budget, then you make a forecast. In the case of Nigeria, we look at how much you're going to sell the barrel of oil, which for this year's budget was $75 per barrel, and now we are suffering for it. A lot of things determine how the government is going to put out a budget. Okay. And that also, when you look at a state, in this case that we're talking about, and they have financial obligations that they have to do with, of course, they're going to carve out their budgets, and they're going to predetermine all these indicators of what they are going to get, what they feel they are going to get. They are not completely certain, because if you are so certain, then it's no longer a forecast. If you are so certain, then that is what you are going to get.
Are you saying that they are forecasting to get into contracts?
No. Contract is not. Of course, they are going to pay their contract, and if you see directly,
your forecast is contract.
Yeah. So that is where I'm going.
Okay.
In the fact that we are going to pay for this contract. We've given you mobilization fee to start, which, is one of the legal requirements for contractors to move to site. And a lot of things are going to determine if that contract is going to continue, if you can finish it, even on the part of the contractor, for the time period for which it has been highlighted or is going to be stalled. As far as the federal government is concerned, as maybe immediately the budget, the crude oil price fell down. And up till now, I don't think we are selling for $75 per barrel. We are going to suffer a lot. And if the government is trying to augment that shortfall by going out borrowing, we will raise eyebrow and we will raise our voices. It's going to cover those shortfall, because the forecast that we currently have, we cannot meet that because our revenue sources are depleted. That's the same thing. So I'm telling you why sometimes the state is going to owe contractors. The state, the state is, of course, they are going to owe contractors.
Can we not tell you why owing contractors should be a crime?
Owing contractors cannot be a crime. You can owe your business partner. You can owe him as long as there is this agreement between both parties that, look, you are going to cover this up within a specified period of time. And for contractors, like I say, sometimes the contractors on their own part default, because they are telling you, look, when we struck this contract from the beginning, all the materials that we are going to purchase before now was at the rate of the dollar. Let's say the dollar was $75 or $100 to the naira. And in the course of the period, the amount of the dollar skyrockets to 150 naira. And this contract, just a moment. That's where you see the contractors go back to the state governors or to the federal government and say, look, we cannot continue with regards to our previous negotiation. We have to make amends. If the government has shown some form of understanding to bring in the contract, to listen to them, and to defer to them, I think it should be required from the contractors on their own part to also defer to the government. And I'm not saying it's a good thing for us to owe contractors, because a lot of the capital projects are going to suffer. That sometimes these things are not deliberate making of the state government. Some financial indicators and contractual indicators are also going to set
Do
in.
you agree that this owing is not deliberate? Looking at our environment and what we see on ground, do you agree that these owings are not deliberate?
I mean, if we go by the federal government's example he made, I don't think the federal government's owing is deliberate because, like he explained, from the budget, there is a prediction or forecast of exploiting 2 million barrels per day. We are currently doing 1.6. We are expected to sell for $75 per barrel. Is selling for around 70. So we can see the discrepancy. However, the forecasted non-oil revenue
Has increased.
as they exceeded their their forecast.
But
we
loans.
and the
So that shortfall has been bridged.
has been no. I mean, until we look at the numbers, we can't exactly say the fact that non-oil revenue exceeded what they were expecting. It covers for the shortfall in the oil revenue because oil revenue is still the major source of revenue for us as a country.
Bring it down to states.
So, I mean, to states, until we pick each state and look at it critically, we cannot say for sure. But one thing we can all agree is that all the states have seen 2 times, 3 times level of revenue they've been receiving in the
From
past.
the center.
From the center.
So why are they still
and
doing
which is their major source of their revenue. For most states, the FAC allocation contributes 60% of their revenue. So if you've doubled that or tripled that, we shouldn't be seeing you owing retirees or pension at best. Contractors, I would say, is inevitable because there are so many factors. Sometimes contractors come out to say they are being owed, and it might be because they've delivered a substandard job, and the government is looking into the quality control and what they are expected to deliver. So there is that, and contractors will come out to say, "Oh, we are being owed." Sometimes, life happens. Like he said, revenue is supposed to come in, is not coming in, or there is an overriding interest. There's a priority that comes in. If, for example, there is a disaster and the government needs to put money into it, they have to look at, should we pay contractors now or deal with displaced people, relocate them and all of that. Sometimes life happens. But we can all agree that as Nigerians, the governors have been, a little reckless, especially now that they are getting a lot more money. There should be more prudency and more integrity with what they are doing in terms of their financial obligations.